May I inquire?
You may.
Mr. Calhoun, will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Bradley Wayne Calhoun.
Will you tell the jury how you're currently employed?
I'm a shift lead with Walgreens.
Before working at Walgreens, did you work at the Dollar General?
Yes, ma'am.
In what capacity?
I was the assistant store manager.
And what Dollar General were you working at as the assistant manager?
The one at Edgewood.
I'm sorry?
Edgewood.
Were you working there on June 21st of 2013?
Yes, ma'am.
And will you describe for the jury what your job entailed at the Dollar General?
Basic store functions, counting down money, customer service, stocking.
Did you also sometimes work behind the counter as a cashier?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with the case of the state of Florida versus Donald Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me direct your attention to June 21st of 2013. Did you, on that day, were you working at the Dollar General?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have contact with a woman that day who later became known to you as Rain Periwinkle?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you describe for the jury your contact with Ms. Periwinkle?
She was a frequent customer, so we were on a friendly basis, but that's it.
Did you recognize her as a customer?
Yes, ma'am.
And on June 21st, did she come to the Dollar General on Edgewood Avenue?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember approximately what time?
No, sorry.
Do you remember if anybody was with her?
Her children.
How many?
3, I believe.
Were those little girls, little boys?
Little girls.
I'm sorry?
Little girls.
And had you seen them with their mother before at the Dollar General as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also on that day have contact with a man who later became known to you as Donald Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see Donald Smith in court today?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you please point him out and describe an article of clothing he is wearing?
Light blue shirt.
And he is seated where?
To the left of me, to the left of you.
Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has properly identified the defendant, Donald Smith.
The record will so reflect he's pointed in his direction.
Mr. Calhoun, will you describe your interaction with the defendant that day?
He came in, walked around the store. He came up to the front after a few minutes, asked me if we had any adult magazines. That was about it until Miss Periwinkle came up to the front. She was checking out. There was some articles she left behind because she couldn't afford them at the time. And then he came up and inquired about that.
Okay, so let me walk back a little bit.
Okay.
First of all, does the Dollar General did it sell adult magazines?
No, ma'am.
And did you tell him that?
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that Rain Periwinkle brought some articles of clothing up to the cashier's desk but left them behind because she couldn't afford them.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about your interaction with her.
We were doing some price checks. There was clearance markdown items, and we were checking prices.
And what were the articles of clothing?
I believe it was some summer wear, little dresses, stuff like that.
Okay. After you did the price check for Ms. Periwinkle, what did she do with the clothes?
She left them at the counter.
And then what was your next interaction with the defendant?
He came up, asked if she wasn't able to afford them, and then he asked if it would be too forward or to ask if he could help with pay for them.
Did you find that question to you strange?
A little.
And how did you respond?
I just told him that that's not really my job. I don't want to tell anybody what is right and what's wrong.
What, if anything, did you notice next about the two of them? And by the two of them, I mean specifically the defendant and Ms. Periwinkle.
After a few minutes, they were standing outside the store talking.
And do you recall for how long they were outside of the store?
Maybe 15, 20 minutes.
And where were the little girls while Ms. Periwinkle was talking to the defendant?
They were outside around the front of the store. It had actually started to rain a little bit, and so they actually started trying to bring in some of the stuff we had outside to help out.
The children did?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see Ms. Periwinkle and her children leave the property of Dollar General?
Yes, ma'am.
And will you describe that for the jury, please?
They left with Mr. Smith. They got to his van. That was probably about 15 minutes before closing.
And could you see out the window of the Dollar General from where you were located at the cash register?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you subsequently contacted by law enforcement in this case?
The next day.
And tell the jury about that.
I actually had to call them back because they had been given the wrong information from the manager that was on duty that morning. So I had to call back and let them know that they needed to search later on in the evening for the tapes they were looking for.
Okay, explain what you mean.
They had came to the store to
They
search,
meaning who?
The police.
Okay.
But they were searching the wrong time frame on our security cameras. So I called to let them know I could walk them through the right time frame.
So let's talk about Dollar General's video surveillance capabilities. Obviously, the store had cameras.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you familiar with how the system worked?
Yes, ma'am.
And as part of your job as an assistant manager there, did you also take custody of surveillance video when it was relevant to a particular issue in the store?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do that in this case as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And so when law enforcement contacted Dollar General, you learned that they had been looking at, you said, an incorrect time frame?
Yes, ma'am.
And how were you able to direct them to the appropriate time frame that they needed to review?
From the memory of just, when the interaction happened, I'm able to go right back, punch in, within hours, search through.
And that's what I'd like you to tell the jury about. What prompted your memory about the night before?
Sorry. I walked into work. They told me about it. As soon as I heard about it, it just clicked. I had heard when I got up that morning, I'd already heard on the news about the incident at Walmart. It wasn't until I actually got into that day, and my store manager was telling me about the police coming to the work to check the cameras, that I put two and two together.
When you say it clicked, or you put two and two together, do you mean recalling this defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
And specifically Ms. Periwinkle leaving with him?
Yes, ma'am.
So you made contact with law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you begin yourself to review the surveillance footage from the night before?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you take custody of Dollar General's surveillance footage and turn it over to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
In preparation for your testimony today, have you taken the time to come to the state attorney's office and review that original surveillance footage?
Yes, ma'am.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Mr. Calhoun, let me show you what's been pre-marked for identification purposes, State Exhibit F. Do you recognize these discs?
Yes, ma'am.
Are these the discs that you, in fact, reviewed in full at the state attorney's office?
Yes, ma'am.
And were these discs the original surveillance video that you collected and gave to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
This time I would tender into evidence that's been pre-marked as State Exhibit F. If you have number exhibit. No objection, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be entered as State's Exhibit number 6.
Mr. Calhoun, did you also have the opportunity to look at a shortened version of those original surveillance tapes?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me show you what's been pre-marked for identification as State Exhibit H. And do you recognize this disc as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this, in fact, the shortened version of the original surveillance footage that you provided law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
What looks different about State H from the original surveillance footage that you collected?
From the one that's in your hand?
I'm sorry?
From that one?
How is this, the redacted version, different than the original?
The interaction at the register where she left the items behind, that they don't have that angle on there.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. Did you notice that there are arrows in
Yes, ma'am.
State H?
Yes, ma'am.
And what do those arrows reflect?
Rain Periwinkle and Donald Smith.
And in looking at State H, did you in fact confirm that those arrows accurately reflect the defendant and accurately reflect Rain Periwinkle?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let me take you back. You just mentioned that State Exhibit H does not capture an interaction that the original surveillance videos do.
Yes, ma'am.
We tell the jury what you mean by that.
They only did the angles where they're present on the screen, not necessarily my interactions with them, so they didn't put that into the actual FBI cut.
And State H is a shorter version of the original surveillance videos now
Yes,
in
ma'am.
evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
And last question, State H, is it in fact a true and accurate reflection, just shortened, of the original video surveillance that you collected and gave to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a moment.
Sure. All right. Any cross-examination?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Calhoun.
Good afternoon.
In fact, Ms. Periwinkle and her children were somewhat frequent customers at your store?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you would notice that they normally got to your store by walking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in fact, you kind of noticed after they had left your store, you noticed this interaction between Ms. Periwinkle and the person you've identified as Donald Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I guess right at that exact same time, someone that you kind of assumed was Ms. Periwinkle's friend also was talking to them,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
And you kind of picked up on that because of the way they greeted one another, that it appeared that Ms. Periwinkle was familiar with this other person.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember, did that person, it was a female person?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did that person ever physically come into your store?
That I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay. And you found it unusual that Ms. Periwinkle brought herself and her 3 minor children into the van that you saw them leaving, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have anything further on.
Any redirect?
No further questions.
May Mr. Calhoun be excused?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The state may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. May the state next call Samantha Bray.
Samantha Bray,
May I proceed, Your Honor?
you may.
Good afternoon. Would you please introduce yourself and spell your last name for the record?
Samantha Bray, B-R-A-Y.
And Ms. Bray, where are you currently employed?
Leslie,
What do you do at Leslie's?
a manager.
And what type of work do you do there?
Retail.
Were you previously employed at Walmart?
Yes,
Which specific Walmart?
the Walmart on Lemon Turner Road
And when did you begin working for that Walmart?
in 2011.
Were you still working for Walmart on June 21st of 2013?
Yes,
And what was your position?
asset protection associate.
And could you please describe your duties as an asset protection associate?
To protect company assets, detect and detain shoplifters.
And while working for Walmart as an asset protection associate, did you become proficient in the operation of Walmart's surveillance system?
Yes,
And could you please describe that system for the jury?
it's made up of many cameras, still cameras, movable cameras, and a DVR system.
How is surveillance footage recorded and stored?
It's recorded onto the DVR system
And where is that DVR system located within the store?
in the asset protection office.
And is it located on a desktop computer within that office?
Yes,
Is the asset protection office located in a secure area?
yes,
Is access to that office limited?
yes it is.
To whom?
Upper management and asset protection only.
And are the recordings made automatically?
Yes,
And do they contain date and timestamps?
yes,
I'd now like to draw your attention to June 21st of 2013. Were you working at Walmart that day?
yes.
Do you remember what time your shift began?
Approximately 3 p.m.
And was the surveillance or the video surveillance system working properly that day?
Yes,
At some point that evening, did officers of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office arrive on scene?
yes.
Do you remember approximately what time that was?
Between 8 and midnight.
And did those officers make contact with you?
Yes,
And based on that contact, were you asked to assist them with their investigation?
yes.
How so?
Pull back video.
Could you describe the process of pulling back video?
You go to the desktop computer, you go into the DVR system, you pull time and date and approximate location.
And then from there, what do you do?
You save it and burn it to a disk.
Did you employ that process to obtain specific surveillance footage of Walmart on the evening of June 21st of 2013?
Yes.
What date and approximate time frames did you pull?
June 21st, 2013, between the hours of 8 p.m. and midnight.
And how many discs did you use to burn that surveillance?
16.
Were those videos altered or edited in any way?
No.
And what did you do with those discs?
I turned them over to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
And for the record, I'm now approaching Ms. Bray for witness what is previously marked for identification of Case Exhibit G. Ms. Bray, would you please take a look at these discs? Ms. Bray, do you recognize these?
Yes.
What do you recognize them to be?
These are the disks we turned over to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
And do those discs contain the original surveillance footage that you pulled on June 21st of 2013?
Yes.
And do those discs fairly and accurately represent and depict Walmart on the evening of June 21st of 2013?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move into evidence what has previously been marked as Case Exhibit G as the next numbered exhibit.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, they'll be entered as State's Exhibit 7 in evidence. Thank you.
And Your Honor, at this time, the state has no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Just
All
one
right.
question. Good afternoon, Ms. Bray.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Bray, at your particular Walmart, the one that you were working back on back in 2013, how many cameras were there in the store?
A lot.
And they're all over the ceiling, right?
The ceiling, the doors.
Okay. And when somebody walks into your Walmart, was there a TV up there showing them walking into the Walmart?
Yes.
Okay. So it's obvious to anybody in the store that's doing anything that they're going to be recorded, right?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. You're free to go.
The state calls Christopher Ivers to the stand.
Christopher Iber.
May I inquire?
You may.
Mr. Ivor, will you please state your name for the record?
My name is Christopher Ivor. It's spelled I-B as in boy, E-R.
Thank you. Will you tell the jury how you're employed?
I am currently employed with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Forensic, Audio, Video, and Image Analysis Unit in Quantico, Virginia.
Is there an acronym for your unit?
FABIU.
How long have you worked for the FBI?
This May it'll be 15 years.
And how long have you worked in the field of photography?
It's been over 30 years.
Will you explain to the jury what your unit does at the FBI?
As our name would indicate, we do forensic analysis on audio, video, and imagery. I am an image examiner of questioned photographic evidence. My official title is photographic technologist. I do 4 types of exams. I do comparison analysis, and that would be comparing faces, clothing, cars, guns, anything depicted in photographs or in videos. I also do authenticity. Has an image been manipulated or changed, or did an image come from a particular camera? I also do photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is simply the science of taking measurements from photographs. So this would be height determinations or the velocity of a vehicle in a video, how fast it was going. And then I also do enhancements. This would simply be improving the imagery so that you can get more information from the video or the image.
Let me direct your attention to the case of State of Florida versus Donald Smith. Are you familiar with this matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you provided in Quantico, Virginia, surveillance video footage from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I was.
Do you have your reports with you?
Yes, ma'am, I
And
do.
you may refer to those if you need to. On what date did you receive surveillance footage from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office related to the matter of State of Florida versus Donald Smith?
I received 2 different groups of videos. One is from a Walmart, and that would have been on June 8th in 2015. And then the other was from a Dollar General store, and that was December 8th, 2015.
Mr. Ivor, what were you asked to do with those 2 sets of videos?
I was asked to add indicators of individuals that were depicted in the videos to help assist in seeing their location within videos.
Did you also reduce the number of hours to a single of the original videos to a single FBI disk?
I did. When I was working on the videos, I noticed that the time frame was a long period of time, and so I requested if it would be okay for me to redact the areas where the people of interest were not displayed in the video, which shortened the video.
Mr. Ivor, how did you identify, you said people of interest, how did you identify the relevant parties in the video surveillance?
It was indicated by Mr. Henson from the attorney's office which people were in the videos. I was given exemplars and photographs of the people that he was interested in.
And how did you indicate the relevant parties in each of these videos?
Originally, the request was for me to do it similar to the way my unit did the Boston Marathon bombing videos for that court trial, but they used circles. And because these individuals within these videos were so close together, circles would have been very confusing, so I chose arrows. So I used color arrows to indicate the people of interest.
Did you have an arrow key that's reflected on each of the redacted and enhanced videos that you created?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And does that key actually indicate the colors you use for each relevant party?
It does.
May I approach?
You may.
Let me show you what's been introduced into evidence as State's Exhibit G, and ask you to take a look at these DVDs. Do you recognize these DVDs?
Yes, I do.
These have been tendered into evidence represented as being the original surveillance video footage from the Dollar General. Did you review this original footage in Quantico at the FBI?
Yes, I did.
Let me show you now what has been pre-marked for identification. Let's take Exhibit H. I want you to take a look at this. What do you recognize States H to be?
This would be my results copy of the video that I compiled.
And does this reflect the key that you've testified to with the arrows?
Yes.
And what's been marked as State H, the next number exhibit.
We review all prior objections and motions.
Okay, that'll be noted for the record, and States H will be entered into evidence as States Exhibit 8 over those objections.
Let me also show you what has been introduced into evidence as State's Exhibit 7. I want you to take a look at those. The State's Exhibit 7 also reflects your markings from the FBI when you reviewed that original surveillance video.
Yes, it does.
Now let me show you what's been pre-marked for identification as State's Exhibit I and ask you if you recognize this DVD.
I do. This is the results copy that I returned with the compiled video.
All right, thank you. State's Exhibit I will be entered as State's Exhibit 9 over the previously expressed objections.
May I publish states 8 and 9 to the jury?
You may.
When you help.
Your Honor, maybe we position ourselves.
You may.
around that.
You may.
Let's do. Mr. Iver, do you recall how long the redacted Dollar General video is?
No, I do not recall the exact length of it.
Ready? Go ahead. Mr. Iver, what does the blue arrow reflect?
That would be one of the questioned individuals that I was asked to indicate.
And your key at the beginning of this video indicated that the blue arrow was Donald Smith. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You don't know Mr. Smith.
No, I do not.
You obtained that information from law enforcement.
That is correct.
Mr. Iver, let me pause this right here and ask you, will you explain to the jury when you're actually doing an enhancement such as this and using arrows, how the process you undertake to do that?
Sure. It's digital video, so I use a nonlinear editor. It's Adobe Premiere is the software that I use. It's something that you can purchase off the shelf. Within that software, you're able to enhance videos, edit videos as well. So you can add markers, or you can lighten or darken or sharpen. It has different types of filters that you can use with those videos. This particular video, the only thing that I added were arrows.
For the record, I'm hitting play again. Mr. Iver, let me reflect your attention to the orange arrow.
And who is reflected by the orange arrow?
That would be Ms. Periwinkle.
Again, you don't know Ms. Periwinkle.
That is correct.
Okay. For the record, I'm hitting play again.
I redacted areas where the people of interest weren't in the video. And then I indicated how much time had actually lapsed or how much was redacted.
Thank you. For the record, I'm hitting play.
There's multiple cameras within the store, and so some of the cameras were capturing the individuals at the same time. So if I wanted to, instead of splitting the screen and putting multiple cameras up at the same time, I would just cut to another camera and explain that there was some overlap.
For the record, I'm hitting play.
Let me pause. Mr. Iver, is this a different camera angle from the one that we were just looking at, camera 2?
Yes, it would be a different camera.
And is that indicated by the CAM numerical in the upper left-hand corner of the video?
Yes, that is correct.
For the record, I'm hitting play. Once again, let me direct your attention to the upper left-hand corner is what's reflected here. Again, a different camera angle than that inside the store that we were just looking at.
Yes.
This reflects the outside of the store, a parking lot.
Yes.
For the record, I've hit play. Okay, let me pause here. Let me direct your attention to the upper left side of the screen. Is that part of a yellow arrow?
It appears to be, yes.
And who was indicated by the yellow arrow?
Cherish Periwinkle.
For the record, I'm hitting play. Mr. Arbor, let me pause this for a moment now. This is the first time we see a white arrow. What does the white arrow indicate?
Actually, this would be the second time. It was also at the beginning of the video.
It was, I'm
indicating,
sorry.
That's okay. Indicating the van of interest.
Mr. Arbor, did this conclude your work on the Dollar General video?
Yes.
May we approach?
Sure. Ten or 15 minutes. So take your time, and the bailiff will let me know when you're ready. Recess. Thank you.
Now, you took a look, Mr. Iber, at multiple different DVDs from Walmart. Were each of those DVDs from a different camera angle in that store?
That is correct.
Mr. Iber, let me ask you, pause this for a moment. We just saw another substantial lapse of time. Was that the amount of time that you lapsed from the van driving out of the parking lot?
Yes.
Do you want me to rewind it? Do you see the amount of time? Was it 18 minutes?
It was approximately 18 minutes.
Okay. And that, again, was time that you redacted out of the version you put together because it did not have the relevant parties reflected in it.
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Iber, did that conclude your work in the case of the state of Florida versus Donald Smith?
Yes, it did.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination? May this witness be excused? Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The state may call their next witness.
State will call Christopher Rosen.
Christopher